Hi, and welcome to Kent County Closeup. I'm Deb Havens. Today we leave the borders of Kent County far behind. Our conversation will focus internationally on the African country of Kenya and the mission that compelled my guest to leave Michigan to pursue. Megan Ayres' major at Michigan State University is international development. Her recent internship in Kenya gave her a great opportunity to explore how the actions of a few can change the lives of so many. Megan, welcome to Kent County Closeup.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. You and I met briefly not too long ago, and I heard your story about growing up in Greenville and then traveling to Kenya, and it was just a fascinating thing I wanted to explore with you more.
Sure.
But let's begin with a bit of your history. Truly, how does a girl growing up in Greenville get interested in international development and travel around the world?
Yeah, so my family has been traveling as long as I can remember. We've always been going on trips. But what really instilled the travel bug bit me really is when I went to Poland as a part of the Rotary Youth Exchange. And after that, I just haven't been able to stop. It's what has kind of kept me going. And just the idea of exploring new places and cultures has always just really, really intrigued me.
So was there anything about the continent of Africa in particular that stirred your curiosity?
Yeah, it's so different. And every country in Africa is just so unique to itself. So, the culture is just so rich and beautiful. It's hard not to be intrigued.
Yeah.
Really.
Let's take a look at where you were actually traveling to.
Sure.
We have a little map here of Africa, the subcontinent, and there are so many countries that make up this part of the world. You were actually going over there to Kenya.
East.
Yeah.
Yep, right underneath Ethiopia there.
Underneath Ethiopia, okay. Mm-hmm. So that gives us a little idea. It has obviously a very varied topography if it's on the ocean and then inland.
Absolutely, yeah. So it has a coastal region as well as a mountainous region. It touches the Serengeti, so there's also that savanna and grassland there too. So I was able to travel around Kenya quite a bit and explore all those different areas.
Oh wow, that sounds wonderful.
It was great.
So now you're exploring international development as a student at MSU. How does that relate to the country of Kenya? Did you go there with a specific task you had to complete for school?
Yeah, so I do have to have an internship as part of my goals for graduation. So it didn't have to be international, but being an international development student, I thought it would be perfect to have that opportunity. And Kenya is a developing country. A lot of its factors are still in the developmental phases. So it was a great place to explore that, as well as many other countries in Africa.
So you went with a specific idea in mind of what you were going to explore there. It wasn't just visiting various cities and mountains and whatnot.
No, absolutely not. I went with the goal of learning the factors that go into international development, and it just so happened to be Kenya. I could have gone to any other country in Africa really, because a lot of them are still developing.
I see. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a brief look then at the focus of your internship. Now I understood that students, once they completed like an in-class study, then you were actually assigned to different parts of Kenya.
Yeah, there were 12 students altogether, each with kind of a different focus involving international development. Some wanted to focus on children's welfare, others were even doing architecture or policy. So a wide range of focuses, and my focus was on women's welfare, which is why I was given the internship that I did. I kind of had a say in where and how I wanted my internship to go. So after the 6 weeks of coursework, that's when I started my internship.
Okay, so now your internship began in Nairobi, is that correct?
My internship began in Kajiado County, which is where my internship took place.
Okay, so the book learning portion was...
That was in Nairobi.
That was in Nairobi.
Yes.
So let's take a look at that. We have a map too that shows
Sure.
where Nairobi is located in Kenya. So that is obviously further south?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is quite a bit south, and Kajiado, where I was living for my internship, is actually about 50 miles even more south.
Now what do you notice from this map is all the red areas that tell you to avoid, frankly.
Travel advisory, yeah. You can see in the orange area there, that's like the Mombasa coast, which we traveled there for our field trips that we went on. It was kind of like our spring break, but it was an educational spring break. But yeah, we were not allowed to travel in the red areas, nor did we really feel like we needed to. We got a good taste of Kenya from the safe areas in the yellow. Yeah.
So were there any hesitations on your part about this kind of travel?
Unfortunately, right before I left, there was a terrorist attack in Nairobi that kind of caught me off guard. I know that it happens every day all around us, and it is easy to ignore when we are in such a safe location, especially from Greenville. So hearing that and knowing that it did affect the people that I was about to go learn from and visit, it was really eye-opening and made me aware of all of the issues that surrounds the safety of the people involved.
So where were you staying then when you went outside of the city of Nairobi?
When I was outside the city of Nairobi, I was still with the host family. And while I was in Nairobi, I was also with the host family. So 2 different host families, and they both made sure that I was always well taken care of. They explored the culture with me, made sure that I was really getting a true Kenyan experience. It was wonderful. They went above and beyond for all of us. It was great.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So when you actually landed in Nairobi, what were your first impressions?
Sure. It was just incredible, and when you think of Kenya, when you think of developing countries, it's hard to remember that they do have large cities, and the large cities are well equipped with resources. They have everything that you could need. So while I was in Nairobi, I was living extremely comfortably, and which made going to Kajiado for my internship that much more difficult. We went to go study at coffee shops and all of that, and almost everybody spoke English. And then once I moved to Kajiado, those luxuries were extremely limited.
So Kajiado, describe the village.
Kajiado is a village about 8,000 people, similar to that of Greenville, Michigan, which made it feel like home, right? It's a pastoralist community, so most of their welfare is based on the animals and livestock that they hold. A lot of trading is done with animals as well as produce, besides money. It's also a very patriarchal society, which is why women's welfare is so important to focus on in that community.
So talk about what it was like for you to adjust to going from a very cosmopolitan city, which it sounds like Nairobi is, to a village that, and when we say village, what does it actually look like?
Yeah, the village it's still very different. So some people are living in shipping containers in the city. Some people are living with thatched roofs. I was lucky to live with a tin roof, and we had like a cinder block home. A lot of the floors are just going to be dirt, and it's a very small, close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. They're mostly from the same tribe and the same clan as well. So a lot of family ties and stuff like that.
So which tribe were you working with?
I was working with the Maasai tribe, which is a tribe of about 500,000 people, a very, very traditional society. They value their traditions and their culture as well as their language. They mostly speak Maasai aside from Swahili. So after 7 weeks of learning Swahili, I then go live with the Maasai tribe where I know nothing of the language. So getting used to that culture was difficult because things are just so different from what I had just become accustomed to in Nairobi, but it's just such a rich and beautiful culture, truly just colorful and vibrant. It was beautiful.
So what was one of your challenges in learning to adapt to this culture?
Yeah, so what I was working with was an anti-FGM mission, which is female genital mutilation, which is still very common among the Maasai tribe. It is now outlawed in Kenya, which is causing people to do the procedure under the table. And they will pay women to perform the procedure to their daughters, which is then an income for the women, which causes them to have a drive to perform the procedure. So the internship that I worked with was giving the women an opportunity to have an income by learning sewing skills and techniques, as well as access to a market so they're able to sell their products. So they won't have that drive to perform FGM. FGM is an extremely harmful procedure. It's equivalent somewhat to male circumcision, but it's done in very unclean ways. There is little to no, there's absolutely no health benefit to it. and the post-care from the procedure is slim to none. So it's a very heavy subject, but a very crucial one to understand and to know that it's currently happening right now. It's not a historic event, it is currently happening right now.
So here you are, what, 19 years old?
22.
22?
Yes.
Okay. Walking into a culture that is patriarchal, that is ancient, that is practicing something that you are challenging. How did you approach this?
It was hard because you do need to be culturally sensitive. I know that it is a procedure that has been going on through history. So for me, as an American woman who has had no experience with it, to go in and just say stop, that's hard to do. And what was really interesting to me is that it's actually typically the mothers that want the procedure done, not the fathers. For girls that go uncut, uncircumcised, they're thought of as promiscuous. And so the women and the mothers do not want their daughters to have that
kind of negative
negative connotation around them in such a small village, in such a tight-knit community. If your girl is not circumcised, then everybody in the community will know. And marriage is also a huge aspect of the tradition in the Maasai community. And so if a girl is thought of as promiscuous, it lowers the chances of her to be married. So
then you're using a nonprofit that was organized for this purpose specifically to...
Yes, it began as a part of an anti-FGM mission. It's called the Ilamrata Community Concerns, which is a mouthful, so we just call it the ICC. But it was started by a group of Maasai people who wanted to end FGM. So they sold 30 cows in exchange for a piece of land where they built an office. It's a beautiful facility, an office, as well as a building that was used as a sewing and training room for the women. It's open Monday through Friday. Anybody who wants to come in is able to come in. They have all the fabric, all the thread, everything that they will need to make school uniforms, as well as bathroom mats for women that don't have the fine motor skills or the vision to be able to use a sewing machine. There's these mats that they use embroidery needles on. That is much easier, and they can make bath mats, beading as well. So there's so many opportunities for these women at the ICC. And then on Wednesdays, they take a truck and they bring all the products to a market where the women are able to sell. Whatever they sell, they keep that money.
So what specifically was your task in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, so I was just kind of a programs intern, but my main project was working on an adolescent health management program. This program was started by kind of a combination of the Red Cross of Kenya as well as the First Ladies Coalition of Kenya, which is comprised of every First Lady from every county in Kenya, so the governor's wives of every county. So 47 women teamed up with the Red Cross of Kenya and started this coalition and this management program for adolescent health. It used to be called menstrual health management, but they wanted to include boys as well because puberty happens to both boys and girls, and it's important that they understand what's happening with their bodies.
So were you in an instructive role then?
No, I was actually just kind of involved in the forums and the stakeholder partnership with the ICC and this coalition. So we would go and discuss budgeting and tactics used to carry out the program. So the ICC's partnership and their role in this management program was finding funding, helping with funding, as well as providing resources to the Maasai tribes given from the Red Cross and the coalition of the First Ladies.
Well, I certainly understand your challenges. Did you have a particularly bad moment along the way that really caught you unaware? And
yeah, I mean, working with any nonprofit startup is going to be difficult. The ICC is only 6 years old, so they still have a lot of challenges that they're facing. So there were a lot of frustrations, even, I mean, the language especially. So everybody around me was speaking Maasai. I couldn't understand, but being a visitor, it's important to me that I don't make them speak English just because I'm around. So I tried my best to learn Maasai, kind of understand what was going on, and of course just be open and ask questions if I didn't understand what was going on. But yeah, communication was extremely difficult. And like I mentioned, just the cultural aspect, it's so hard. It's like walking on eggshells. You don't want to disrupt and you don't want to completely change a culture, but it's important to educate that what they're doing is not safe. It's harming so many girls, and just causing so much harm to them. So.
Now, you mentioned to me that you had actually seen a procedure being administered.
Mm-hmm.
How did you handle the emotion of that?
It's so hard, and it's so unbelievable that it's real. You know, coming from the United States, I mean, a year ago I didn't even know that FGM was a current thing. And so seeing that, seeing the pain administered to these girls is just, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Do they know before what is actually going to happen to them?
They do not. So a lot of the girls know that circumcision is a process needed kind of as like a way
to... rite of passage.
A rite of passage, true. And so they know that that must happen for them to become women, but what they don't know is exactly what will take place. And a lot of them don't realize what's happening until it is happening. So it's important to educate them while they're young before it happens, and to educate them on their rights as children as well. We educated them on their rights as children, that they can say no, that they have the ownership of their body, and that if they don't want it to happen to them, it shouldn't.
So what do you think is the impact overall? Did you see any evidence of change?
Absolutely. All of the women that were coming to our nonprofit organization were not cutting anymore. And these are all women who, in the past 30, 40 years, that's all that they've been doing to have an income. So a lot of the women that were coming and learning sewing techniques also were the ones that administered circumcision to a lot of the women that were working as employees for the ICC. So a lot of them had connections, and now that they are educated on the outcomes and the issues surrounding FGM, they're more aware of it, and they also spread it along, saying, no, I do not want my granddaughter to be circumcised. No, I don't want her daughter to be circumcised.
So they're actually not in favor of this process so much as it's something that was just passed on through tradition. Tradition,
and as well as an income. When all of the money and all of the land is in the hands of the man of the family, and you're offered an opportunity to have some sort of independence financially, a lot of them will take it.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about Rotary International now.
Sure.
Because they obviously made this study possible. Were they expecting the results that you brought back with you?
Yeah, so Rotary International has been helping me since I was a freshman in high school, and they've just been so supportive and excited about every adventure that I have. The program that I actually went to Kenya with was through the Minnesota Studies of International Development. I went through the University of Minnesota, but before I left, I did a big presentation to Rotary, and they were just so enthralled, so excited, just like me, had never really heard of what was happening down there. And actually just yesterday I was able to give a presentation to my local Rotary Club, and they're still just so supportive, and at the end they're like, so what's next? How else can we help you? And it's just incredible to have that support behind you in such a empowering way.
Yeah. Well, let me follow up on that. What are your plans for the future?
So I still have one more year at Michigan State. I'll be a senior this year, and then hopefully graduating in spring, fingers crossed. And after that, I'm hoping to find an opportunity with Rotary International. I would love to work with them possibly in Evanston, Chicago, where their headquarters is, and from there go abroad with them again. Like I said, I've been bit by the travel bug, I just can't stop. But yeah, that's the plan. If not with Rotary International, then hopefully another like very influential and powerful nonprofit corporation, and I'm hoping to do nonprofit management.
Well, just to take a moment to reflect more broadly than your personal experience, do you see a connection from the work that you've done in a way that can benefit the United States or people here in even West Michigan?
Sure, absolutely. So a big question that people ask is, there are issues happening in your backyard to your neighbors. How are you able to drop that locally and go and help people abroad? And we'll take the Flint crisis, for example. That is happening so local. It's affecting and impacting so many people. And it is a huge, huge issue. The difference being that United States and Michigan as a whole does have resources to help and to make an impact and try to change that around. In Kenya, and especially Nairobi and Kajiado, those resources aren't there. So when, like, clean water isn't available in Flint, but no water is available in Kajiado during the drought. Climate change is impacting them greatly, especially being a pastoralist community, and the dry season lasted for a month and a half longer than it usually does. These people were without a steady source of water for a month and a half, which is very comparable, less comparable truly, to Flint, who has been without it for years. So it is important to not only realize what's happening around you, but also internationally. And that's why I resonate with Rotary so much, is that it's service above self. We have so much, and it's so important to give back and to realize how much we do have, and that the little things, or the big things to us, are just a small issue, comparably speaking.
Well, it sounds like you're bound and destined to make a big difference in the world.
Thank
and
you.
I'm so glad to hear it. So thank you so much for being with us today to share some of your adventures.
Thanks.
And I'm sure you'll have many more to come.
Hopefully, yes, absolutely.
Thanks again, Megan.
Thank you.
And that's it for Kent County Close-Up. And thanks for joining us here at GRTV with the production team in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Cheche me